Welcome to Success Talks with Rodney Saulsberry. I hope you will support my sponsors who bring you this podcast absolutely free and with limited interruptions. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. I'll get started in just a second.
The reviews are in. The latest book from voiceover superstar and coach Rodney Saulsberry is another runaway hit. Readers from all over the world are raving about his newest title, Tongue Twisters and Vocal Warm-Ups. You can find this and his other titles at the top of the voiceover bestsellers list on Amazon.com.
My guest on this episode of Success Talks is Bryan Falchuk. Bryan Falchuk is an author, public speaker, C-level executive, certified personal trainer, and behavior change specialist. He has been coaching people on how to change their lives for the better, using a philosophy he developed to overcome challenges and achieve goals that he teaches in his best-selling book, Do a Day. Now, using Do a Day, Bryan was able to break from judgment of past mistakes and fear of the future to live a life of consistent, unending health and success. And he works to share what he's learned with others, seeking a happier, more complete existence. So that's been his goal, to help people seek a happier existence. Please join me in welcoming Bryan Falchuk. Hello, Bryan. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on today, Rodney.
Well, we're so glad to have you here on Success Talks. We're really excited about talking to you about this great book that you have, Do a Day, How to Live a Better Life Every Day. And we really want to get into it and talk to you about it because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who have experienced some of the same things that you've experienced, and you can help them out with these experiences. So let me ask you first, Bryan. You used to be a big person.
Yeah, I always say when people are like, I wish I was at my high school weight, I weigh about the same as I did when I started fifth grade. And that's not because I was all fit and fully grown in fifth grade. It's just because I was really big then. So I was about 100 pounds overweight. I'm down 100 pounds the first time around, and like a lot of people lose weight, I gained about half of it back just because I never really fixed the reasons why I had gained weight in the first place. It was all through this moment when the whole do-a-day philosophy came to me and became clear that that's when I finally lost the weight for good. And that and a number of other things like marathon running and lots of other things that, I mean, they weren't even, it's not that they weren't goals before, they weren't even in the realm of possibility to consider as a goal. You know, I've done a whole lot since that moment.
I know it's hard to think back that far, but if you think about the fact that you were big like that in the fifth grade, what do you think was making it happen then?
This kind of thing is at the root of a lot of the struggles that people have, regardless of whether it's about your weight or anything else. But as a much younger kid, my parents got divorced. I was about 4 or 5 when things started to go down, and at that age, you have a very basic need, and that's to feel cared for and loved and safe and secure, because you can't provide any of that for yourself. And I didn't feel that way. And, you know, I was one of 4 kids. My parents were embroiled in the divorce. They couldn't give me what I needed, you know, as I was struggling with what was happening at home. And so I turned to food because it was always there and it wasn't going anywhere and it wasn't arguing and it felt good. The more that I turned to food, the more I needed to turn to food. That became my emotional basis. So, you know, it was rooted in this anxiety, this feeling that things aren't okay, and I needed something to make me feel okay, and so I leaned on food. You know, we all have some form of anxiety. We all have some basis for the things that are difficult for us, and it took me a very long time until I was 32 when life was forced upon me through something going on in my family.
Right.
When I finally got in touch with what was really going on.
Now, dealing with the fifth grade again, did you have folks that were bullying you? That's something that is real prominent today, bullying. Yeah. Did you have that?
I was lucky in elementary school that the kids in my school just happened to not be mean to me about it, which is great. But in summertime and in camp and summer activities, you know, kids taking their shirt off to go swimming, that wasn't such a pretty sight with me. And, you know, those 10, 11, 12-year-old kids could be pretty ruthless. So, yeah, I definitely dealt with it. There's a moment where the summer program that I was at, the counselors pitted all the fattest kids against each other in a race. We had like an in-camp track meet, and the entire camp, like, you know, a couple hundred kids basically stood around this track laughing at us as we, you know, huffed our way around the track. It was an 8 times around race. And I passed out at the end, and I woke up being revived in the lake because I was so overheated. And that was a joke to everyone. So I had, a couple hundred kids just pointing and laughing at me for what seemed like ages until I collapsed, which was not the best, not the best experience, to say the least.
I can imagine. Later on, things went on in your life, and you finished high school, you went to college, and you talk about a revolution started with a revelation. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, for sure. So I had lost weight coming out of high school, like my senior year, and I slowly put on, the 100 pounds. I put back on about 45 of them. And there's a moment, it was June 30th, 2011. I was married. I had a 2-year-old son, and my wife had become very seriously ill to the point that she was bedridden, wasting away 2 pounds a day. No one knew what was going on. No one could stop it. And her doctor called to tell me he was going on vacation and just checking in 6 weeks. And I said, do the math. 2 pounds a day, 6 weeks. She's barely 100 pounds at this point. She's not going to make it. And he was just like, oh, okay, take her to the ER if you need to. And hung up. This was a wake-up call for me because it was just it forced upon me what the heck's going on here. My poor son is about to lose his mother. She's still alive, but that's not what we expected to happen. And I was miserable. I wasn't a happy guy. I was obviously very upset with the situation. I was in a job I wasn't crazy about. I had back surgery, and I didn't do PT, so I had all these, I was like dealing with back pain every day. And most importantly, I still had all the issues from the divorce from when I was a little kid that I never dealt with that were just festering in me. And that's when it all just became clear. It's like, for his sake, for my wife's sake, I definitely need to change, but ultimately for mine, I deserve to live better.
Well, you had to be there.
You had
to be there, yes.
There's a good chunk of it that is about my relationship to my son and how important that is. And if my wife's going to have a chance at all in making it through, she needs more of me. But I never valued myself enough to think me deserving to have a good life actually mattered enough. And that was one of the things that became clear is like, yes, for them, and actually for me too. Like, I'm good enough. I deserve to not just be, like I always say, my wife and son were the family, and I was that disgruntled guy who worked there. Like, that's miserable, and no one deserves that.
No.
So that was the revelation for me. That's what woke me up, and I got up the next morning, July 1st, feeling markedly different, and I was like, look, you can either be aware of this and let it fizzle away, or you can grab hold of it like the lifeline it is and change everything, and that's exactly what I did.
So it sounds to me like even though you lost nearly 100 pounds a couple of times maybe, your transformation was about more than just the weight loss.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like some other things changed for you, too. What were some of the other things that changed?
So the weight loss, like any of these other things, that was sort of a symptom of the underlying emotional kind of issues. The things that changed, you'd mentioned weight loss, the running marathon. I'm a vegan, which some people might think is a change for the worse. It's been a change for the better for me. I'm not a miserable person anymore. It doesn't mean I don't have my moments, but on the whole, I'm living a life I really enjoy. I'm creating, and I feel good about that. I've got an incredible job. I've been able to coach a lot of people. I'm speaking publicly about this stuff, and I just having a life where you're inspiring and helping people to do better for themselves, that's been pretty amazing.
You talk about this vegan diet,
Yeah.
It seems to be a real tough thing for people to accomplish. How do you satisfy hunger when no restaurants are serving vegan food?
I haven't had an issue, and I travel like every week. So that was one of my big, I can't do this because I'm, what am I going to do when I'm on the road or when I'm whatever? And I realized, and this is a big part of Do a Day, is I'm making a decision in the current moment based on all these potential what-ifs. And none of them's happening right now, so I might as well give it a shot. And if it happens, I'll face it then, because somehow I'm still alive. The world is full of all these potential what-if problems, things to fear. And somehow, if I've made it this far, I must have been able to get through all of them that I've faced so far. That's the reality. So living your life in fear of what may or may not happen, that's pointless. You're just wasting all of your potentiality right now. So I had that fear, and I just said, look, when I face it, I'll deal with it. And that's how I've done it. And it's been a little over 3 years now, and it's really not been an issue. And you know what? When I faced some decision point where I choose not to be vegan, like one of my what-ifs was, what about my son's birthday and he wants me to have cake with him? I don't want to say no to him. So you know what? I have cake with him on his birthday, and I don't throw everything away. I don't sit there judging myself for like, oh, I've gone and ruined everything, so now I'm going to go find a cow and start chewing on it. I wake up and I do another day. I get right back on it, and I choose to follow the path that I'm on, regardless of whether I messed up or made a different decision before, and regardless of what I may face later. Logistically, it's really not been an issue, and that's, I think everyone's surprised by it. There's a lot of salads and nuts, and I mean, Burger King sells veggie burgers if you really want to go that far. So you can meet Subway's got a veggie patty thing. Like, you can meet the need pretty easily.
Yes, I do. I go to Subway and I do those kinds of things. I love Subway. I really like the fact that you haven't been caught, and I'm sure you love the word positive, and I'm sure you're into a positive attitude. But I like the way so far, I haven't heard that word yet, what you're doing is not succumbing to fear. And that's a positive thing in itself. Yeah,
I mean, that's the essence of Do a Day, is like that word day is really crucial. And I was saying, it's like the right here, right now. So we spend our life trapped between yesterday and tomorrow. So we sit here in judgment of the mistakes we made before, or what was done to us, or maybe it's something that we've lost that we long for. Whether it's a relationship or money or whatever, it's all about some emotional connection to the past, and we over-focus on it. We beat ourselves up about it. And at the same time, it's just talking about all that fear of what are you going to do if there's no food there. We do it with everything. How much more do you have to? When you have 100 pounds to lose, you bust your hump to lose that first pound. Guess what, buddy? You still got 99 more pounds to go. It's just as daunting. So if you sit there and think about that, you're never going to do anything because you cower in the face of that much. And the reality is, you're not losing 100 pounds or 99 pounds or saving $1 million or whatever right now. So you give up today because of the judgment from the past and the fear of the future, and that's a choice. It may be hard. It may feel difficult to choose otherwise, but you can choose otherwise. And once you free yourself from that cloud of fear and judgment, you start achieving anything.
What exactly is Do a Day? How did you come up with that title?
The title itself is tied to the veganism. I was reading a book by this vegan ultra athlete. Like, the guy runs double Ironman, he runs bikes and swims double Ironman triathlons. Like, he's pretty amazing. So my wife got me his autobiography, and he's talking about, you should do this, you live a vegan lifestyle, here's how you do it, here's why you should. And I had been thinking about it, but I had all those fears of, all the what ifs, and never did it. And I said it out loud one night. I was like, you know what, I can do a day. Like, I'll do it tomorrow. And it was that saying that out loud, I was like, that's how I've been living my life. This was 2015. I've been living my life by Do a Day since that moment in 2011, that July 1st when I woke up. I just didn't know what to call it. And it was, as soon as I said it, it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, that's how I've been doing things. So it's this present moment. It's not just the day part that we talked about. It's also the word do. So it's a verb. You got to be proactive, take action in support of what you're trying to achieve. And that's what I do every single morning when I wake up.
How is that different from one day at a time?
Yeah, so one day at a time to me is it's about just sort of like gritting your teeth and getting through it. It's like, it's raining out, just put on your hood and just sit there and wait for the rain to pass. Let's not do a day. It's not about getting through anything. It's about getting yourself through something. So if it's raining, get up, go somewhere else, go inside. You don't just sit there and let the storm hit you in the face. Do something for yourself. So to me, it's much more about taking action and control.
And so what kinds of situations could I apply Do a Day to? Let's say trying to get into another occupation. How could I bring Do a Day to that and learn about getting into a new occupation?
There's a piece that's really crucial if you want to get into a new career that starts with a values exercise. So figuring out what are the things that are most important to you in your career. Because a lot of us just mindlessly go into a job, and then we wake up and, we're like either a robot doing it or we're miserable doing it, or both. So I work with people to think a lot more critically about what are your real must-haves and must-not-haves in your career. We work through that exercise, and then you get a better sense of what you really should be going for. When you understand the reason why you want to go for something, you're much more likely to get it So when you apply for a job knowing why that job's a true fit for you, you present as so much of a more attractive candidate. You know, the HR people will like you better. The hiring manager they'll connect with you because they sense the connection that you're bringing to that role.
Would you recommend a list? I mean, you talked about, like you just said, two different things, what I'm after, what I'm not after. Should I make a list like that, or what were the headings that you put over it?
Yeah, so I have an article I wrote that walks people through this exercise. You split a piece of paper in half, and on one side you write must have, and on the other side you write must not have. 2 to 5, no more than that. And each one, they can't be opposites of each other. So it's not like on the must have must make at least this much money, and the must not can't be must not make less than that. They should each stand on their own and be unique things. But
why is the number so minimal? Why is it only 2 to 5 on each side?
They have to be the non-negotiables. And so what you'll see is when I give people the exercise and they come back to me with their answers, there's no right and wrong, but I challenge them on all of them, because if they say something that I'm like, I'll use the money example because it's easy. A lot of people tend to put down, I must make at least this much money. Let's call it $100,000 for simplicity's sake. That's a great salary. You put that down, you're like, I can't make less than that. I'm like, well, what if you got every single one of your other must-haves and none of the must-not-haves, and it paid $90,000? Would you take it? And like, oh yeah, of course. Like, okay, so either 100's the wrong number, or money's not as important to you as you thought it was when you did the exercise. And then they're like, oh, okay, I get it now. I had someone who said must not work beyond the 9 to 5 hours. And this is someone who's in the professional, like, white-collar world. So that's fine, but that's not really reality in the kind of work that you do or that you're interested in. So let's talk about, if that's really what matters to you, then you need something that you work an hourly shift. Like you need to work in retail or, a receptionist job or something like that, where it's like that's your shift and you come in and do it and you leave, work in a restaurant, whatever. And she's like, I'm not interested in any of that. I want to do this stuff. I'm like, okay, so tell me why you said 9 to 5. And what it was about was her current job kept reaching into her personal life. So it was 24/7. It was, you need to come back into the office. You need to be here on the weekend. It was always last minute. So her personal life totally eroded. So she was having this like whipsaw reaction of saying anything outside of 9 to 5 is just out. I could never be asked to do that. So I said, well, what if you loved your job and they asked you to stay till 6? She's like, that's fine. I was like, so it's not 9 to 5. So you really have to push on it. You could list out 100 things, but a lot of those really aren't, they're not the deal breakers. I'm talking about the most important things that you will not budge on that. And then you got to ask yourself, why is that so important to you?
Do you charge for these exercises?
I do charge for coaching work, but this is something I put out for free. So if you go to Inc. Magazine, you can search for me there, and you'll find this is one of my articles. But people can go to the Do A Day website. I link to this. It's doadaybook.com/must, M-U-S-T, because it's about must have and must not have. So doadaybook.com/must. You can download. It's a little PDF, just the one pager to set up the exercise for you for free. And while we're on it, I've got another exercise that, for me, starts the ball rolling in all this that I would actually recommend people start with, and it's doadaybook.com/the-exercise. So it really gets you thinking about your values and what's most important, because ultimately that's what you need to get in touch with. If you want to start achieving, you have to figure out what is more important to you than anything else in the world, because that's what ends up pushing you through those tough moments. That was my reset that got me to change my life. That's what I work on with people when I do the coaching. We have to wake you up and find your real purpose. So this exercise is a little way to start that ball rolling for you and start you thinking about what matters to you.
Mm-hmm. Do we need people to assist us? Is it important that the family be involved?
3 things your family can be. They can be assisting you, they can be neutral, or they can be working against you. If they're working against you, that's got to change. Whether that's family or friends or coworkers or whatever. If they're people who are working against you, you have to find a way to take that influence out of the picture, either by separating yourself or by working on your response to it so it doesn't bother you. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, if your family's neutral, that's fine. It's tougher. If they're supportive, that's beautiful. And I encourage people to talk openly about what they're trying to achieve, because most family members, they may rib you a little bit depending on, the level of sarcasm in your family, but ultimately they're not going to be upset by you being a better person. It's better for them too. And maybe that's how you appeal to them is, look, I haven't been the best person to be around. I know that. I want to be better for me, and that's better for you too. So this is what I'm working on.
Family is what we have. But friends, those are things that you can step away from. Just like you did the pound cleanse, so to speak, do you think sometimes we need to cleanse friendships, maybe move on from some, maybe work on some?
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be a really hard thing to do. Sometimes even the most dysfunctional friendships that we know are dysfunctional, we still stick around. And, friendships, relationships, whatever, they all fall into the same categories. Sometimes we have that need for that dysfunction, and we need to figure out why. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you probably know exactly which ones you need to step away from. The question is, can you do it? You can. It's all a question of if you choose to. We all can.
I have really enjoyed this, Bryan. I'm sure that you have said some things that really resonate with our audience. And you're a great person to be on Success Talks because it's all about success, people who are successful. You have been successful in losing the weight, keeping the weight off, putting out a product to help other people. And we really, really appreciate that. We're so glad that you have this stuff out here for us all to use, that we have access to. Can you please let everyone know how they can get your books and get your blogs and whatever you may have out there in social media?
Sure. So the easiest thing to do is just go to doadaybook.com. It's a book, and it's called Do a Day, doadaybook.com. Hopefully that's pretty easy. I'm super active on social media. That's how you and I connected. But I link to all that at Do a Day Book. You can get to my blog, my articles on Inc. and elsewhere. I'm speaking at a couple of TED Talk events this year, but all of it, it's all linked up at doadaybook.com. So if you can remember that, you can find everything else.
Really glad to have you today. Thank you so much. We are really happy to have had you on Success Talks. Bye-bye, Bryan.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Rodney Saulsberry, Better Than Before. The uplifting new album featuring a collection of motivational music. Rodney Saulsberry, Better Than Before. Available now at rodneysaulsberry.com.
Hello everyone, this is Sean Daly for dailyvo.com. I want to tell you about one resource I highly recommend for vocal warm-ups because it takes out all of the guesswork and it was purpose-built with voiceover in mind. It's called Rodney Saulsberry's Tongue Twisters and Vocal Warm-Ups with Other Vocal Care Tips. How's that for a title? So in case you don't know, Rodney Saulsberry is a top-tier talent and coach, motivational speaker, and author of several books on voice acting, including You Can Bank on Your Voice and Step Up to the Mic. The book is available in print and on Kindle, and you can find it at Amazon or Rodney's personal website, rodneysaulsberry.com, in the store section.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I urge you to listen to future podcasts where I will continue to try and make you better than before. My goal is to point you in a positive direction to success right here on Success Talks with me, Rodney Saulsberry.